Welcome back to Piers Morgan Uncensored. Now, they say the camera never lies, but is that true? Take a look at this photograph. It's the winner of a Sony World Photography Award, but the artist who created it ended up rejecting his prize after admitting he made it using artificial intelligence. Well, the use of AI is seemingly everywhere these days, but the more it's used, the more debate it creates. Just this afternoon, a song that uses AI to clone the voices of Drake and The Weeknd, two of the biggest selling artists in the world, has been removed from streaming services after singing criticism from their music company over copyright laws. First, let's have a listen to what they normally sound like. AI version of Drake and The Weeknd.
Talking to a diva, yeah, she on my nerves. She think that I need her, kick her to the curb. All I know is you couldn't have the world.
Absolutely fascinating. Well, joining me now is Nick Stewart, a music industry legend and now the chief executive of TCAT, or To Catch a Thief, an anti-piracy business, and from Israel, a historian and his best-selling author of Sapiens, Yuval Noah Harari. Well, welcome to both of you. Nick Stewart, great piece in the Telegraph today in which you were quoted about this song and about that photograph, really, I think, demonstrating what a threat AI is to the creative arts. My question for you is, how serious do you think that threat is? And should it really matter, or is this in its own way another form of art?
Well, the threat is huge. We're on the edge of a precipice, and I'm not trying to be too dramatic here. It's come across so quickly as well, that's the point. The two tracks that you played, I think people need to understand. The original, it was done by Drake and The Weeknd. The AI generator listens to all Drake and all Weeknd and then puts something together that comes out as the second track you played. So there's no artist involved. It is completely generated.
Right, so here's my question for you.
Yeah.
I saw you tapping your fingers to the AI version. Spontaneously.
Yeah.
You could have stopped yourself,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's a good tune.
Yeah.
Why should we care? Why does it matter? Why couldn't Drake and The Weeknd actually think, you know what, this saves us a lot of work?
Okay. Two things. One is there's a British copyright law which dates back to 1988. So you could say it's a bit out of date and it's been tinkered with. The other thing is passing off, which is not actually on the statute book. Passing off has been handed down through precedents, through judges, and passing off is what this is.
Which is why it's been removed.
Exactly.
But let me ask you this. What if Drake and The Weeknd, like I said, what if they decided to adopt this technology to save them having to come up with new songs? Is that possible?
No,
could it be a force for good?
No, artists don't do that.
Even if it was a big hit? It's a good song.
Well, I know what you're suggesting.
Yeah.
Artists, and I'm sure if Drake was here, he would say, and he got very cross about another track that had been similarly dealt with. Artists want to do their own stuff. That's what they're in the game for. We've had situations in the past with groups who've been doing rip-offs and samples and all the rest of it. Real artists want to do their music, and they don't want anybody else.
All right, but what about the photograph, which was a beautiful photograph, so good it won an award before the guy who did it said, well, actually, AI created this. As a lover of great photography, why should we care if that's been done by artificial intelligence or by an actual human being?
Because they've infringed. It was done from the Getty Library, wasn't it? So what they did, they went into the Getty Library and they just picked it again. They scraped it all out and up it came. And they scraped it so well. That
So it's theft, basically.
It's theft.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Let me bring in Yuval. I want to start, if I may, Yuval, by playing. This is a clip from Elon Musk talking to Tucker Carlson on Fox News last night. Very interesting what he said.
I'm going to start something which I know you call truth GBT, or a maximum truth-seeking AI that tries to understand the nature of the universe. And I think this might be the best path to safety, in the sense that an AI that cares about understanding the universe it is unlikely to annihilate humans, because we are an interesting part of the universe.
So, Yuval, this came after he said that actually AI could lead to the end of humanity as we know it, if we allow it, because it would be a superior intelligent force, which, if it managed to break out from human control, could be the end of us. And that reminded me of a conversation I had with Professor Stephen Hawking in what was his last television interview, in which he said this. Is artificial intelligence going to be the end of us? And if it's not, how do we best work with it?
Ever since the start of the Industrial Revolution, there have been fears of mass unemployment. as machines replaced humans. Instead, the demand for goods and services has risen in line with the increased capabilities. Whether this can continue indefinitely is an open question, but there is a greater danger from artificial intelligence if we allow it to become self-designing, for then it can improve itself rapidly, and we may lose control.
So really interesting that Elon Musk really is now saying what Professor Hawking told me. I mean, you're an expert in this field. How worried should we be about artificial intelligence actually taking control?
We should be very worried, because what we need to understand about AI, artificial intelligence, it is the first tool that can make decisions by itself. All previous inventions in human history always empowered us. They always gave us more power because the decisions were always made by humans. If you invent a knife, the knife cannot decide whether to use it to cut salad or to murder somebody or to save their life in surgery. If you invent an atom bomb, similarly, the atom bomb cannot decide who to attack and when and where. AI is the first technology that can actually make decisions by itself. It can make decisions about its own usage and development. Nukes cannot make better nukes, but AI can make better AI. And also, AI can make and does make decisions about us. Increasingly, when you apply to a bank to get a loan, you apply to get a job, it's an AI making crucial decisions about your life. And we haven't seen anything yet. AI is just making its first tiny baby steps.
Yeah.
It's something like 10 years old. You know, to really think about it as like this is the beginning of organic life 4 billion years ago. This is the first amoeba crawling out of the organic soup. Can you imagine how Tyrannosaurus Rex would look like, or how Homo sapiens would look like, and what we'll be able to do?
Okay, well, you successfully,
this is
Yuval, you
the moment for
successfully,
AI.
yeah, look, you successfully terrified me and probably all my viewers. So, how do we save ourselves from the T-Rex of AI?
Well, first of all, it can also, of course, be used for good. And
Right.
so far, we are still in control, but we don't know for how many years. And therefore, we need to, first of all, understand the capabilities of AI and slow down its deployment to make sure that we use it wisely and safely. You know, the same way that a drug company cannot just release a new medicine to the public without going through a very rigorous safety checks, it should be the same with AI.
Right, but
Okay,
here's
you
the problem.
develop this-
Here's the problem,
Yeah.
it seems to me, which is it's fine to be well-meaning. I mean, Elon Musk, I think a lot of what he does, he's a force for good in many ways. You know, all the stuff he's been involved with is to try and, I think, help rather than damage the planet. But this AI intelligence is going to get in the hands of some pretty bad people or some pretty dodgy
Absolutely.
regimes. And they're not going to have any qualms about trying to get the edge over the West or America or wherever it may be. That's where I see the real danger, is that, you know, a bit like nuclear weapons getting into rogue states' hands, is that once the wrong people have control of this, then all hell could break loose.
In the hands of the wrong people, AI could be the end of democracy. AI could also be the basis for the worst totalitarian regimes in human history. Because, you know, dictators always dreamt about following everybody and monitoring everybody all the time, but they could never do it because, you know, even the Soviet Union, you have 200 million Soviet citizens. Stalin didn't have 200 million KGB officers to follow everybody around all the time, and then to analyze you need millions of analysts to analyze all the data you collect.
Okay, so let me
now
ask you.
with AI, now it is becoming possible. You don't need human agents to follow us
Right.
around.
Well, that was exciting. Our sound desk, which is 2 days old today, just crashed. So that's why we went off air a little suddenly in the middle of that debate about AI, as my mother texted me, "Oh my God, has AI taken over?" Which actually was a pretty good way of looking at it. So I'm rejoined, hopefully, by our two guests. Nick Stewart is with me, and by Yuval in Israel. Yuval, my apologies for the sudden departure from you there. I'm going to start.
Technology never works when you need it.
Yeah, I don't think it is AI, but you can never be too sure. I'll come to you in a moment, Yuval. Nick, just to round off, you were telling me a story in the break there about Oasis. Tell me what that was about.
As I'm sure your viewers know, Oasis, the Gallagher brothers, broke up. Okay, there have been talk of a reconciliation, but at the moment that's not on the table. If you go on YouTube, you will find something called ISIS, which is AISIS, talking about a lost album. An AI generator has made.
And what's it like?
It's uncannily good.
Right. So if you're an Oasis fan, why would you not want that?
No. Well, the answer is. Yes, you would. And so, but I mean, in terms of bands that have ceased to record, I mean, would people go down the route of trying to AI? We've
got a bit of it here, I think. I mean, it is fascinating. Let's go to Yuval finally. Yuval, give us end on some hope here for us. All right, I need to feel more hopeful than I do right now, which is I basically think the world's going to end quite soon when Terminator comes real. Do you believe that the planet has the right people in the right place to actually stop that happening?
I hope so. We know about technology, that you can use the same technology to build completely different societies. In the 20th century, some people used trains and radio and electricity to build totalitarian regimes like the Soviet Union, and other people used exactly the same technology to build liberal democracies. It's the same with AI and with the technologies of the 21st century. We still have a choice about how to employ them. I think that AI is nowhere near its full potential, but also human beings are nowhere near our full potential. We don't really understand the full potential of our brains, of our minds. If we invest, for every dollar and every minute that we invest in developing AI, we'll invest another dollar and minute in developing our own mind and our own consciousness, I think we'll be okay.
Fascinating. Yuval Noah Harari, thank you so much. Honestly, a gripping interview. Apologies for the interruption. Well, joining me now is socialite and Prince Andrew's former girlfriend, Lady Victoria Harvey, author and historian Dr. Tessa Dunlop, and my son's former royal editor, Duncan Larkham, and from America, the lawyer to 20 of Jeffrey Epstein's victims, Gloria Allred. Well, welcome to all of you, a stellar panel. Gloria Allred, first of all, lovely to talk to you, and a belated Happy New Year to you, Gloria. Your reaction when you heard that Ghislaine Maxwell had given this extraordinary interview from behind bars, and I suppose more pertinently to the content of that interview?
Well, I think that she obviously was trying to be helpful to her former friend or acquaintance, Prince Andrew, and that was part of her intent. I can't read her mind. I don't know what her motive was in saying it. Maybe it's because that's what she believes to be true. But it has stirred up quite a storm. But at some point, we should talk about whether there really is going to be a trial, because I have done many settlements with his attorney, not about this case, although you're correct, I did represent 20 victims of Jeffrey Epstein, some of whom had accusations against Ms. Maxwell. But there was a settlement, and his attorney, Andrew Brettler, is very, very good. And for him to say that Prince Andrew, or to have it suggested as a rumor that he is going to file a lawsuit that somehow he was pressured by his mother into the settlement, that, as they say in the South, in some parts of the United States, that dog won't hunt, because that's not a reason to overturn a settlement. And further, likely, although I haven't seen the settlement, most settlements, or in fact all of them that I've ever done, with Andrew Brettler, his attorney, have always included an arbitration clause, which means that he can't just go right to trial, even if he would want to. If in fact he did file the lawsuit, Virginia could make a motion to compel arbitration, because there's always been arbitration clauses. And that would mean it's likely that the court, if it's a court in New York, would compel arbitration, and so there would not be a public trial. At best, there would be an arbitration.
Okay, but Gloria, on the central point of the credibility of his accuser, there's no doubt that the settlement of the case with Alan Dershowitz, in which she admitted that she'd had memory mistakes and so on, that was a serious dent to her credibility. If you were representing Prince Andrew, wouldn't you think that actually, if the main accuser here, who received this huge amount of money, if this other case has basically collapsed on an issue of her credibility, would it not be worth at least trying to go again?
Well, that case ended up in a settlement, not in a verdict. And the argument also could be, and of course I wouldn't represent Prince Andrew, but the argument for a plaintiff would be that, that maybe she had a memory lapse about one person and one set of events. That doesn't mean she had a memory lapse about other events.
Right, but it would be
one last thing, which is
right. But you're
that,
listen, but Gloria, you're a very smart lawyer, razor smart, I would say, one of the finest legal minds I know. If you had a situation like this and you were up against it on the other side, wouldn't you think that if her credibility was now seriously in question, if her memory was proven to be completely wrong in another allegation of a similar kind, would you not think that that might open the door again?
Perhaps, but I think it's unlikely. In order for Prince Andrew to have an actual trial or, even in an arbitration, he would have to prove some kind of fraud at the time. And not only that there was a fraud, that it was that Virginia was part of this fraud. That's a very high bar of evidence. That's very difficult for him to prove, and I don't know that he's ever going to prove it.
Okay. Interesting stuff. Let me come to Tessa on this. Look, I have a view that the moment Andrew paid that cheque, it was game over in this case. He can't revisit this. He said, I'm going to take it all the way, I'm going to clear my name. Then he just caved and paid a massive amount of money, millions. We're not exactly sure how many. You read between 3 and 10 million. It's, take your choice. But it was millions and millions of dollars to a woman he claims he never met, which never had any credibility, as far as I'm concerned. Why would you pay someone you never met millions of dollars in a sex abuse case? So you put it all together and you think that. But, and it's an important but, if his main accuser, the woman he's paid all this money to, has got now serious credibility issues, why shouldn't Andrew re-enter the legal fray?
It's an entirely separate case. This is absolutely classic. People going out of their way to discredit the victim of sex abuse crimes.
Well, hang on.
These girls, generally girls...
Hang on, just look, to play devil's advocate, people aren't going out of their way to do it. She was discredited in her allegations against Alan Dershowitz. He won that case. Right, but if an accuser admits that she actually lied about that man and told very serious allegations about which turned out not to be true, that's different, isn't it?
I think it's really important to remember that these girls come from chaotic backgrounds, which is one of the reasons why it's so hard to make a case stick, which is why we all have to remember when we've been listening to what Ghislaine Maxwell's been saying, this is a woman who was called out by the judge. She was called out...
You've got notes because you don't know anything about this case.
I do know quite a lot about talking truth to power. I'm sitting here on an NDA, so I understand what it's like as a woman.
You don't know about Virginia Guffrey.
I can tell you quite a lot. She was called out by the judge.
Have you read
Judge
her book?
Nathan.
Have you read
Judge
her book?
Nathan.
Have you read her book, which is a made-up book? There you go.
I have not.
She talks in that book about taking so many sleeping pills and so many drugs the weekend at Kinnerton Street that her memory was very hazy. Right. She writes that with her own hand.
Let's recall that Virginia Ghislaine Maxwell, heinous and predatory is what the judge called her. And she went out of her, one second, she went out of her way to give Ghislaine a 20-year sentence that was beyond the maximum guideline. That is how appalling it was. It was extraordinary to get all those women talking truth to power in that way. So don't let's just finally miscredit. Miscredit Guthrie and her bravery. I'm going to be. Let's just be honest.
liar.
You can't use language like that.
I just want to finally remind you what Andrew signed his name to.
Okay.
Stop.
I just want to... Sorry for the bad language that was used. And only for that. Victoria, here's the bottom line with this. I don't believe Ghislaine Maxwell at all. Right? I think she was up to her neck in it with Epstein. I think she was guilty as she was found guilty. And I find this revisionist bleating she's now doing is all self-centred to try and get herself off the rap. The more interesting question for me is Andrew, because he remains...
He was made to settle. He didn't want to settle.
But he's a grown man. Who makes him settle?
The Queen, because he's an honourable person.
He didn't have to settle.
He did. Were you there in the room? I mean, I wasn't there, but I was told that the Queen and Buckingham Palace, basically, he was forced to settle. He had no choice.
I mean, look, let's bring in Duncan here, because...
And they literally just fed him to the wolves.
OK.
Right
hang on, Tessa. I want to bring in Duncan. From a journalistic point of view, if we were pursuing this as an investigation, and you had a woman who made allegations against two high-profile people, and one was a top lawyer, right? Alan Dershowitz is not any old lawyer. This is a guy who represented John Lennon and got him from being deported, right? This is a famous guy in America.
Totally different.
And no, here's my point. And she makes allegations of a similar nature against him as she did against Prince Andrew. And she's now had to drop that lawsuit, admitting she may have made a mistake in identifying him as one of her past abusers. We know, as journalists, our natural instinct would be to then be very sceptical about anything else that she was saying, right?
Well, yes, but I mean, apart from the fact that this is a case that's gone on for years.
But just pretend it's not her. Just pretend it's like a person has just done this and has openly lied. And then, so what would you think about the case with another person? Do you think she's being truthful?
Well, either lied or she made a terrible mistake based on
just had a very
issues in her life.
creative imagination. And saw
whatever the reason, Tessa, wait a minute. Whatever the reason, she got it wrong, badly wrong, and seriously defamed Alan Dershowitz in the process. And he fought it all the way, and that lawsuit's now been dropped. And that is the same woman who's accused Prince Andrew.
There are all kinds of things that, had it gone to court, that would have probably needed light shed on them and might not have stood up to any kind of testament at the time. The picture and the authenticity of it obviously being one of those points. But also about the involvement in newspapers more than a decade ago, when the story was being effectively sold to the tabloid papers, which I was part of at the time. And so that would be, in Britain, certainly, that would put a big question mark over any potential victim. But I don't think any of it matters if you take a step back. It doesn't actually matter what on earth Andrew's thinking if he is seriously contemplating reopening this. He's already been found guilty in the court of public opinion. And his appearance on the BBC with Emily Maitlis has just demonstrated...
Well, that was a total disaster.
Well, that was a complete setup.
He set that up.
I can't even tell you what is really behind this, because you wouldn't even understand. But
it wasn't a setup. I mean, Newsnight went to him. He agreed to do an interview.
And he thought he did well.
He basically exposed himself hideously over an hour-long toe-curling encounter with a very smart journalist. Here's my problem with Andrew about all this, right? I remember when the pictures appeared on the front page of the News of the World of him walking with Epstein through a park, Central Park in New York. Wait. It wasn't like he just met him in the park. He spent 4 days with the guy at his Manhattan townhouse. Here are the pictures. 4 days, and they were all partying. Right, lots of women seen coming and going in that time. This is after Epstein had admitted abusing a 14-year-old. After he was a convicted paedophile. So here's my question. Is that you can get round... I mean, everything else can be murky. What I can't get my head round is Andrew, son of the Queen, flies to New York for a 4-day jolly.
Do we know for sure it was 4 days?
We do. It was 4 days. 4-day jolly with a guy who was a convicted paedophile. Now, that alone, to me, should disqualify him from public life, right? I mean, you can't be a senior member of the royal family and consort with convicted paedophiles willingly for 4 days.
Yeah, but, you know, we have to remember it wasn't such a big story back then.
But it doesn't change the facts of what he did. It doesn't change the facts of what he did.
When it happened the first time, I almost didn't even believe it when I first read it, because it was kind of like...
that's classic.
It wasn't on the front pages back then.
But, Victoria, what you've said there is absolutely a classic case. people don't believe it when establishment figures do the unbelievable.
No. But what I'm saying is, you don't know about Virginia. Like, I've followed this day and night.
Victoria, could I just tell you what Andrew signed his name to? Can I? No. What I've got here are notes from the case that he put his name to. Let me tell you, Andrew accepted. When he signed last year, he accepted that Virginia had suffered as an established victim of abuse.
To anything,
and as a result of public attacks, he accepted that publicly. So are you now saying Andrew's a liar? Because to rescind on that, he's a liar.
He's never admitted anything,
but
any wrongdoing.
He accepts she was the victim of abuse, of sex abuse.
To say that.
Oh, so now you're saying he's a liar. So
you know the irony, Victoria, is if Andrew had not settled, if he had taken it to court, then actually, given the timeline of this other case collapsing, it could have been a situation where the credibility of his main accuser had been brought into serious question before they even got into court. In which case, the whole case may have been dropped anyway.
What happened with Alan Dershowitz? I've been in communication with him, I don't know, maybe a year or so, and Virginia kept delaying. Her lawyers kept delaying, and his health wasn't good. You know, he was really suffering, and so if you're innocent, why would you keep delaying a deposition, right?
All right. Welcome back to Piers Morgan Uncensored. Barbie has long been criticised by feminists as a symbol of unattainable princess-like perfection. The iconic metal doll is now the inspiration for a Hollywood movie, one of the most anticipated of the entire year, capping Barbie's evolution from symbol of the patriarchy to feminist icon.
Barbie, small and so petite. Barbie has smart new styles for every occasion. For dates with Ken, club meetings, tennis.
Meet me at the mall.
Cool. What you gonna say next? Listen.
Do you have a crush on anyone?
Anybody know how big the brain is? Sophia. It is medium. Medium.
What's going on? Why are these men looking at me?
Yeah, they're also staring at me.
So, fantastic plastic feminist icon or sexist claptrap? With the movie's outrageously dismissive tagline, she is everything, he is just Ken. Has Barbie actually done a full 180? Is she now anti, not just Ken, but men? Well, I'm joined by Talk TV contributor Esther Cracker, and also by Talk TV presenter Rosanna Lockwood, and also, drum roll, back from the world's longest holiday, by Grace Blakely, our socialist commentator. I love calling you that. Welcome back.
I love you called that.
Welcome back. We've almost missed you.
I have missed you very much as well, obviously.
Don't
Thank
lie.
you for having me.
And you're wearing your Barbie outfit.
I have apparently been told.
And you've gone blonde since I last saw you.
You did this on purpose.
I mean, I can't say that I did.
You actually now are. You are now
Honestly,
Barbie.
You did this to seduce me.
That is a massive compliment, honestly. If I look anything like Margot Robbie, I will take that.
So look, let's start with you then on this, given you've come dressed as Barbie. So there are a number of Barbie characters in the movie. Right, one plays President Barbie, one plays Dr. Barbie, one plays a Barbie with a Nobel Prize in physics, one is a mermaid Barbie. However, all the male characters in Barbie world are simply called Ken. So it's pretty clear where this movie is going. This is an assault on not just Ken, but all men.
I mean, I think men in general will have to be a bit kind of snowflakey to suggest they're being assaulted by a Barbie movie. But I kind of think that's besides the point. I mean, I think, you know, the questions that we have around this film, whether or not Barbie is a feminist icon.
Is she?
Actually, well, I think it matters less than the fact that the Barbie franchise has commercialized the feminist critique. So now you can be like, oh, you can feel like a good feminist because you buy a doll for $25.99, or you can feel like a hashtag girl boss because Barbie has a Nobel Prize or Barbie's an entrepreneur. Whereas actually, feminism is rooted in the struggles of ordinary women. It's about the fact that, you know, women often get paid less. It's about the fact that women are on the front line of some of the hardest sectors to work in care, in our healthcare system, in social care. It's about the fact that they do so much unpaid labour in the household.
How many female bricklayers do you know?
I mean,
or female bin cleaners.
Great question.
What are you talking about?
Great question. Have you ever met a female bricklayer?
I don't know.
No, you haven't.
But I love the assumption that being a bricklayer is harder than, like, caring for the terminally ill and dying.
Have you ever been a bricklayer in the winter?
But, like, have you ever been someone
A
looking after
caretaker?
this
Yes,
family and
yes, I
dying?
actually have. Yes,
like, it's
I have.
obviously
Yes, I
a
have.
very, very challenging job, isn't it?
And it's
like,
not as hard as being a bricklayer.
But in what sense? What does that even mean?
Excuse me, you asked me if
Are
I've
we
done it
talking
before.
about-
I've missed this.
Yeah.
Are we talking
I
about
have done it
whether or not
before.
it's physically challenging, emotionally challenging? I mean, there are care workers who are running up and down between houses getting paid less than minimum wage.
No, I
because
get that, but you
know,
don't make a fortune as a bricklayer either, and you're out in the elements.
I just don't understand
Do you know
why
what? I'm
we're
gonna
pitting
launch a
these professions
campaign.
against each other. It's a bizarre cul
Let me try and get one single word in here. So, Rosanna, look, Barbie's jobs include being an astronaut, a surgeon, Olympic athlete, downhill skier, aerobics instructor, TV news reporter, vet, rock star, doctor, army officer, Air Force pilot, summit diplomat, rap musician, presidential candidate, baseball player, scuba diver, lifeguard, firefighter, engineer, dentist, and many more. I mean, she's not a bad feminist icon. She's done everything.
She's had over 200 careers, apparently, since she was first conceived. But, you know...
Is she a feminist icon?
Look, when you said unattainable princess, perfect like perfection, this is what you were thinking of. These three women here, who
It's
obviously,
true.
I think all three of us probably...
Perfectly imperfect. Can we settle on that?
Perfectly perfect.
We probably all played with Barbies growing up. I'm going to guess that.
Given Barbie's enormous reach now, given how many different Barbie dolls are out, you can almost have a Barbie doll for any type, whatever. Is she legitimately a feminist icon?
No, I don't think she is, but there are other toys available if you don't like her.
Why
She
does,
doesn't need to be.
Barbie need to be a feminist icon? Why can't girls just play with pretty dolls?
I don't think that she should be a feminist
young girls
icon.
don't
I
even
don't think that-
understand anything to do with feminism.
I
They're
don't think
just
that
children.
feminism should be co-opted by massive multinational
Well,
corporations.
that's
that are
fine,
seeking
but
to
I don't
profit
think
from
young
a
girls even
critique
need
of
to
basically
learn about
capitalism.
But, Grace, what about if it's shaping the way young girls are growing up? That's what...
Well, I mean, I think this is the problem people have with feminism. This is why we end up having all these debates about, like, oh, you know, feminism doesn't account for the struggles of ordinary people and it's just, like, very rich and wealthy women at the top of companies saying, I want more money. It's because feminism, which is actually a critique of capitalism, in part, has been taken over by big multinational corporations who basically say, look, we have 3 women on our board, so the gender struggle is over. And it's just, this is a symptom of a wider problem.
All right, you mentioned gender. The Bank of England says anyone can get pregnant of any gender identity. They've offered to help staff to pay for gender reassignment treatment, including... Now, this has all been going on in your absence ad nauseum, some might think, this whole gender debate. But this concept that anyone of any gender identity can become pregnant is obviously ludicrous.
I mean, I'm going to start before even opening up into this discussion, talking about, yes, I've been away for 9 months, and I've come back and watched how our entire political debate has become dominated by this tiny, tiny fringe issue. We have this massive moral panic over an issue that affects so few people.
It's not a fringe
while
issue.
The climate is literally, like, the Earth
No,
is
you can care
getting
about-
towards
you can
a massive
care about
tipping
the
point,
climate and you
while
can
there's
also-
a massive cost of living
Hang on,
crisis going
hang on.
I was honestly just shocked that
Okay.
this is what we're talking
You can
about.
care about the climate and you can also care about the full frontal attack on the integrity of women's sport because of transgender athletes. You can care about men rapists being put into female prisons. That cost Nicola Sturgeon her job, by the way. You can care about all those issues too.
And yet,
I would have
this is
thought
what
you
we're
would have come
talking
back
about.
and gone, you know what, I've seen the light, Piers. You're right about this
And
stuff.
yet, this is what we're talking about.
I think it's
there is a
because it's
reason that we are
extraordinary.
talking about this issue rather than the Bank of England just raised interest rates. That's going to mean that millions of families are not going to be able to repay their debt, repay their loans. They're going to be pushed into poverty. And here we are talking about some, you know, absurd thing about whether or not...
I think you've just hit the nail on the head, because shouldn't the Bank of England be more concerned with bringing down inflation rates than, you know, offering their employees
Yes!
Well, I'm sure, to be honest,
surgery?
I'm sure this was just some sort of random thing that was...
No, it's not random.
But that's
Rosanna, hang on. Bring Rosanna.
headline.
Random, but
Our economics expert.
if you look at the crux of the issue, this was actually probably a freedom of information request. Stonewall, the Bank of England applied to Stonewall to say, we want to be in your top 100 list of diversity and inclusion sort of index thing. This was last year they made this application. The information has only been revealed now, and I would say that that is the Telegraph and other papers capitalising on the argument that the Bank of England has lax monetary policy, and they're trying to make the argument that they've been too focused on diversity
That
and
it's
inclusion.
playing up to cultural
But let's be clear.
Marxists
Look,
and the
you can
woke brigade
Yeah, but look,
or
you can
whatever.
you can have 120,000 genders, as many as you like. Only women can get pregnant.
But, like...
I mean, that's just a biological fact. Only women get pregnant.
People
you can have
who
as
were-
many gender debates as you want. You can feel like a mouse for all I care.
Only
but you
people
can't
who were
actually pretend
born
anyone other than a
women.
biological female can have a baby.
Yeah, sure. Only people who are born women can get pregnant.
You
But
accept
people
that?
who are born women can also become men.
Not become,
and
they can
people
identify as anything.
who become
men.
men can also legitimately become mothers.
No,
that happens all the time.
They can't become men.
They can.
No, biological men are biological men.
Yeah, I mean, if
They
you are
can be
born
trans.
a woman, you can become a trans man.
They can be a trans man. Let's settle on that. Why do we have to change everything?
I mean, I agree. I made this point to you like years ago, and I thought we kind of settled it. You know, you have cis women and trans women and cis men and trans men. We don't have to get all up in arms about all this stuff. It just doesn't matter that much.
I'm so glad you do still get up in arms about this. I've really missed this. Esther, I mean, I agree with you. The Bank of England, get on with fixing the economic crisis.
It's the optics of this that's even more frustrating, because you don't want a news story of the Bank of England, paying for their employees gender transitioning when there are clearly bigger issues at hand here. But I think it's just this obsession with companies that feel like they have to, talk about these issues all the time. I'm just happy for a business to function as a business. I don't need to know their stance on gender identity or anything like that.
Shockingly, I actually agree.
Well, that's in itself a shocking moment. Do any of you have a view about Johnny Bairstow and the way he was out at Lord's?
No, I saw this. My dad showed me. This was the clip where.
What did your dad say?
My dad said that it was perhaps slightly unfair to have knocked him out, and that there should have been. What did he say? That it should have been reviewed or something, and that ordinarily that's what would have happened, because there was some precedent.
Your dad's right.
Okay.
No idea.
No view? No view.
Yeah. less than zero.
Brilliant pack today, and great to have you back.
Lovely
Grace.
to see you back.
Really, I nearly almost enjoyed that segment. It's been great. I really missed you. The problem with limitless gender identity is that it defies some basic facts of life. At various points, for example, I've identified as a black lesbian, a two-spirit penguin, and a cat. But despite willing them into existence, at no point have I sprouted whiskers or flippers. Reality has trapped me in the body of a much maligned middle-aged white dude. And reality came crashing home for a team of female basketball players at a high school in Massachusetts last week in a very literal sense. The match was reportedly abandoned after a biologically male trans woman player injured 3 girls on the opposing team. Well, the local athletic association said it's against the rules to exclude a player based on their gender identity. They decided to put inclusivity and the rights of the individual above obvious fairness in competition and above the safety, as it turned out, of the majority of the players who were biological females. Like so many of these decisions, these rules are perfectly well-meaning. I don't think these people want to do ill. They hide behind the umbrella of wanting to promote and support trans rights to fairness and equality. My problem with it is that by doing so, they are eroding women's rights to fairness and equality. And excuse the pun, a lot of these things are just nuts, aren't they? Like the video we just saw. In a near perfect example of life imitating art, this story reminds me of the Daily Wire film Lady Ballers, in which a team of pretty useless men identifies teenage girls to become basketball superstars.
So a guy can become a girl with no physical changes at all.
Oh, that's called gender fluid.
So I can be a woman on the court and a man in the bedroom. I can't believe it. Nice!
Day one of being a girl athlete. I love being...
We could dominate every woman's sport. Running, swimming, soccer.
It would be a lot funnier if there wasn't a real truth to this. This desire to do the right thing, often in total defiance of factual reality and, frankly, common sense, is beginning to cause very real harm. The great Dr. Phil spoke to Joe Rogan this week. He took on the vexed issue of hormonal treatment and gender surgery for children.
It's interesting they choose words like gender-affirming care. But really what they're talking about is hormonal therapy or sex reassignment surgery on children. All of the major medical associations have signed off on this, Joe. They've signed off on it. And I have never seen those organizations sign off on anything with less information as to whether or not it does long-term harm of anything in my life. And when I ask about that, when I bring that up, then they immediately label you as transphobic.
Of course. That's always the allegation. I get called that week after week after week for simply suggesting that the kind of scene we just saw on that basketball court is completely wrong. It's not transphobic to think that. Doesn't mean I don't like trans people or think they're not entitled to respect and equality and fairness. It means I want to protect women's rights. I feel the need to start almost every conversation on gender identity with a disclaimer. So here it is again. I've got no time for anyone who bullies or ridicules trans people. They can identify how they want. The question is how that self-identification manifests itself when it comes to other people's rights. I don't think that transgender people can expect to have fairness and equality at the same time that they are destroying women's rights to that same fairness and equality. If that makes me sound transphobic, I think you're the one with the problem, because I couldn't be clearer. I want fairness and equality for both. Right, the Piers Pack is back to discuss this, and some of them already visibly bristling. We're going to talk about a number of things. Prince William's intervention about Gaza, Donald Trump and those golden shoes, and some other matters like Madonna falling flat on her face again and me suggesting it may be time to retire, Madge. So my Uncensored Super PAC, the Uncensored contributor Esther Crackfield, the comedian James Barr, and from New York, the Conservative commentator Deborah Lee. Well, welcome to all of you. All right, James, let me start with you. I could feel the bristling.
I'm so glad you are starting with me.
Feel the bristling, but I want you to really identify what makes you bristle when we discuss these trans issues, because you cannot, in all good conscience, look at that basketball court.
I can, actually.
And what happened and not think this is ridiculous.
I can, actually, because what you're failing to mention, and I just quickly Googled this whilst you were chatting, there were 6 players sent off in the FIFA Women's World Cup last year. They got red cards. Women are also doing the same thing to each other in sport.
Did you see the size of that trans woman?
You were not there. Let's talk to the people that were affected by that clip. Let's ask them how they feel. But also, I want to pick up on a few things you said. You said that that you support trans people and that you're not okay with people bullying them.
No.
Yet you're also talking about how you identify as a penguin and a cat.
Like, you know why?
That's Mickey taking.
Hang on.
And that is technically transphobic.
But do you know? Well, hang on. It's not, though, is it?
You're oversimplifying.
But you're not
gender
giving the
identity.
context of why I said those things, right? Context is really important. Yes, they can take my clips and put them around TikTok and everyone throws their toys out the pram. Fine. But put context onto the table, right? Go through those things.
What's the context? Sorry, what's the context?
Go through the things you just said that I said.
You said that you were a cat, that you were a penguin.
Let's take the cat. There's a phenomenon called furries, with kids turning up at school saying they're cats and being treated like cats by teachers. I think that's completely and
But that has absolutely nothing to do with trans people, so it's completely irrelevant in this conversation.
It's about self-identification.
Which has everything to do with trans people.
It
I mean, the question is, where do you draw the line?
Well, hang on. The trans issues are part of self-identification. The point is, you can now just put your hand up in most sports in the country and around the world and say, I now identify as a woman.
You know that's not true.
No,
I'm
sorry.
So difficult to identify.
It's really not.
There is such a
It's
long
really not.
process.
Can I
you
ask
cannot
you,
just
you know,
change
there
your
was-
gender.
there
You can
was
just
that lady.
change
It
your.
is so
You can
difficult.
change
There
your
are so
testosterone
many-
levels and compete.
There are so many barriers to healthcare, and it's terrible. And people
Okay,
like
hold
you
on.
are
What about
creating this
Rachel?
massive...
What about Rachel Dolezal, who pretended to be a black woman, even though she was a white, blue-eyed woman from, I think, was it Wisconsin?
This is again another subject that people throw. It doesn't make any sense.
Where do you draw the line? Because somehow someone identifying as a cat is ridiculous, but someone identifying as the opposite gender, which is literally impossible, is not ridiculous. So where's the line? You
But
can
now
identify
you're talking about
as an
identifying as a
inanimate
different
object.
race.
But why is
different?
mocking people who are themselves making a mockery of self-identity? Why is that bullying?
Because it's not mocking. It's not that they're. I'm sorry, I'm confused with what you're saying. This argument.
Do you actually think we should respect young people who go to school identifying as a cat?
I'm not talking
hang
about
on. Just to be clear, that you raised that with me.
You raised it and said that you weren't a transphobe.
And you said to me I was being effectively a bullying
let's talk about the
transphobe
penguin. What's that
by
to do
saying
with
I
anything?
think kids identifying as cats and being respected for it is nuts.
You said
nothing to do with trans people.
You said that you identified as a cat, as a penguin, as
You know why a
gender.
penguin? Because the BBC came out and said that there were 100 different ways to identify your gender. So I said to wait a minute.
Piers.
I said to Benjamin Butterworth, who was the guy who came on Good Morning Britain, so am I right in thinking you can identify as anything? He went, absolutely. I said, and you have to respect it. Yes, OK. In that case, I'm a two-spirit penguin.
Great. Well,
right?
I'm happy.
At which point he said, at which point he said,
problem is,
hang on. At which point he said, you're being ridiculous. And I said, hang on yourself. There are not 100 genders. One of them was astrogender, an affinity with the stars and planets. This is bullshit.
Listen.
So you and I should have a proper discussion about trans rights and women's rights without getting into stupid, ridiculous arguments about whether, if I say it's dumb for kids to be allowed to identify as cats, you say it's transphobic.
But what you're missing, I'm not saying that is specifically transphobic. What I'm saying is that by saying jokes like that, you are empowering people to bully.
Okay, let me bring it. All right, let's bring it.
You are empowering people to bully.
You're not. What you're doing is you're mocking a ridiculous concept. Let me bring in Deborah Lee. Deborah, you very, very patiently. This is I've got to blame America for this. This all started with you lot, and it's come over here. When when you sneeze, we catch a cold. So thank you for bringing this ludicrous woke stuff over here. But on this issue,
don't blame me. I stand up against it.
I mean, I just feel if we can't have a proper, reasonable debate about things like trans women competing against biological women in sport and it being unfair without being accused of being transphobic, I think that's really sad, actually.
I do too, and I think it's a way to just shut people up when they don't agree with what we're saying, but it's extremely ignorant to not see how the trans movement has created the way for people to self-identify as penguins and frogs and bears and whatever else they say. If you see on TikTok, there's a woman who purposely makes videos about how to use frog self pronouns, and to say that this did not stem from the trans movement allowing people to self-identify however they please, nothing to do with facts or reality, just whatever they please. If you are fully a man, you have all genetically male DNA, and you suddenly identify as a woman, that's the same as somebody identifying as a penguin. Although we can still have compassion for those people and want to get them the best care and make them be okay with themselves and happier in their own bodies, to say that this is not connected is completely ignorant of the past few years of culture in this country. It's all connected.
Yeah, and I think, James, the problem is what people on the woke left do, they weaponize all these things, immediately adding obic to everything. So if you raise a quizzical eyebrow about anything which is transparently wrong or unfair, they just say you're obic, whatever it is, transphobic, bigoted, blah, 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 whatever it is.
I think you're empowering transphobia. I don't necessarily think you're being transphobic, and I appreciate that you think...
So you agree now I'm not a transphobe?
Right. I never said that. But what I think is I'm definitely not going on record to say that.
You should, because I'm not.
I'm not, Piers, because it's up to you to prove it, and I don't think you are.
I don't have to
right
prove
now.
anything.
But listen, we know that...
I have always said I support trans rights to fairness and equality. It's people like you that have called me transphobic.
But by having this conversation outside of that, it's ridiculous. Look, I sort of... on the whole sport thing, I think it's an interesting conversation, but I would go even further with my woke ideology, and I would actually suggest that we should not have gendered sports. I think everyone should be...
Oh, great idea. No, wait, I knew it.
I think everybody should be in a sports team by body type.
Fantastic.
And then everyone will be safe, and this entire nonsense will be over.
Fantastic idea. So we have the gender-neutral Olympics, and guess how many women, biological women, end up winning medals? Oh,
Zero.
Hang on.
No, we put them in a team.
That would be a big fat zero.
I will be in a team with other men that are my size. You'll be in a team with men that are your size. You'll be in a team with women that are your size, or men that are your size.
That works for wrestling.
How many women sprinters have you seen who look like Usain Bolt, out of interest?
But you wouldn't put them against each other.
How would you do it?
You would have people like Usain Bolt together, people that are his size. You would have people that...
They'd all be men.
Okay,
well, they might not be. You might have women that are his size.
I weigh the same, and I'm the same height as Lionel Messi.
Great.
Will we put on the same football team?
Yes, I think you should be, yeah.
Are you mad?
No, I'm not mad. But your conversation is mad. And if you're arguing about body types and biological shapes, then you should put everybody together based on that rule.
How are you ever going to improve then? If you don't play against people who are better than you. I grew up as an athlete. I played many sports my whole entire childhood. If I played against men or women who were just the same as me, how would I ever even get better? You need to be in a group of mixed amount of people. And I think that's so dangerous to put women against men.
Yeah, the United States women's national soccer team played, I think it was the Dallas under-15 boys team, and they lost something like 8-1 or something. Yeah. Right? I mean, right there is the whole thing. Right? I've got a clip to play you, actually. We'll do it in the next segment. It shows the physical disparity between men and women more clearly than anything. It involves me and my rippling biceps. But before we get to that, let's talk about Donald Trump's sneaker brand. So he announces at this event the other day that he's selling a pair of gold sneakers, and somebody bought them. Roman Schaaf, a founder and CEO of Luxury Bazaar, bid $9,000 for a signed pair. He was shamed for being a Russian oligarch. What do we think of this, Esther? Would you have paid $9,000 for Trump's signed gold sneakers?
I would, actually, because he can sell it for probably 10 times that amount.
Yeah, I thought it was a bargain. James,
Yeah, exactly.
would you buy it? I can see you.
No, absolutely not.
Your kind of colour?
They're disgusting.
You don't have to wear them. It's about the commercial value.
What do you think of the person who bought them?
I mean, I'm very happy for him if he wants to spend that much money on something as ridiculous as a pair of shoes, but that seems like a waste of money. You could probably get your house done for that.
It's an investment.
Is it an investment?
It is an investment, seriously. I would take it, yeah. I just
Well, I'll tell you what, James,
you
can tell him yourself because Roman Sharp is joining us. He's on his way to Mar-a-Lago right now to meet Donald Trump.
No way.
Roman, great to see you. Thank you very much for joining us,
Uncensored. As well.
According to one of my guests tonight, it's absolutely disgusting what you've done, paying $9,000 for these sneakers. Your response, please.
Well, first and foremost, I didn't realize the internet and the media was going to throw up over a sneakerhead buying a pair of sneakers. I am a sneakerhead. I'm a big Trump fan. And I put the two together and I said, you know what? $9,000 is not a bad price. I've already been offered $20,000 for them just to be on a record.
Of course, I bet it's worth a lot more. I mean, look, are you, for the record, a Russian oligarch? You don't look like one.
Don't sound like one.
Well, close. I was born in Ukraine, actually. I am an American. I'm a U.S. Army veteran. And, yeah, I looked at my bank account this morning just in case. And no, it doesn't seem to match the Russian oligarch status.
You're actually a U.S. military.
Not enough.
You're a military vet, American military vet. So when people have been spewing all their bile, as they do with anything to do with Trump, without knowing actually about your record of service to your country in America, how do you feel about that?
They saw Russian Trump. And they went off.
Yeah.
Your Daily Mail UK, the ones that dubbed me the Russian oligarchs, they have since apologized and changed the title to Ukrainian businessman. How about just a man? You guys were talking about identities here shortly. I was listening, and just a man that likes sneakers, that likes Trump, that bought a pair of sneakers, and the world went crazy. End result, however, is I get to meet Donald Trump. It's
that's
amazing.
the thing I was going to ask you, because I've been to Mar-a-Lago. I know Donald Trump very well. I talked to him the other night, actually. What are you going to say to him when you see him?
I'm going to say that I am grateful for the opportunity to meet a man who is, A, my favorite politician, B, is a great businessman, and number one, the biggest patriot of this country that I live in. And I am the same way. I am a patriot of this country. I put a response video onto my Instagram channel that went viral and everybody picked it up, basically saying that the worst part about this whole drama was the fact that it once again showed me just how divided America has become over political issues.
But don't you think that's because of people like Trump? For example, if we look at January 6th, I mean, you're a defender of liberty and freedom. Thank you for your service on behalf of my American friends and family. But don't you think Trump is to blame for some of that?
I don't. I think that our media has been so weaponized.
This is exactly what they do to Trump supporters. Anyone who rallies in support, they try to attack him.
I mean, in defense of Trump supporters,
January 6th.
In defense of Trump supporters, I hope you realize that there's the choice between Donald Trump and literally a corpse. So I don't necessarily always blame Trump supporters. The opposition is not allowed.
Well, I'm actually curious, Roman. I mean, just for people who hate Trump, and we know there's lots of people that hate Trump, lots of people that love him. For those who really do hate him, why do you feel so supportive towards him?
It's a very simple answer, and people ask me this all the time. And the answer is this: Trump is not a politician, right? And this is what you hear. He's not a good polished politician, and so on and so forth. And that's what I love most about him. He has nothing to prove. He doesn't owe anybody favors like a typical politician brought up in the system of the United States. When he became president, his goal was what he said. He wanted to make America great again, and I truly believe that. Now, whether he's perfect or not, we can argue this till the cows come home, as they say. But at the end of the day, he's not a typical politician bred through the system from the bottom up, owing a ton of people and companies favors on the way up. He's here because he's already accomplished all he needed to accomplish in his life. He's a billionaire, for Christ's sake.
I mean, I would say, look, he's very flawed, but then actually a lot of people that I know are very flawed, present company included. I think that he has a style about him which is incredibly appealing and incredibly unappealing in equal doses. I also think he has the thinnest skin of anyone I've ever met and the thickest. So he's a man of many contradictions. But there's no doubt, as things stand, if Joe Biden insists on running for president, I think Trump will get re-elected. And it's going to be an amazing thing to watch. But let me ask you, Roman, you're about to go and see Donald Trump. Are you wearing the sneakers?
No, I brought them with me. They're actually not my size. They're a size 11. Here, my son just handed him over to me. My son is in the car with me.
Let's have a peek.
Let's see.
What's your son's name?
My son's name is Marcus.
Hey, Marcus.
How you doing? Nice to meet you.
Good to see you, mate. Good to see you.
I was at a sneaker event with him that he was doing. Whoop.
Right.
Hold on. So here are the shoes.
Fantastic.
This is the side piece.
Very gold.
Signed by Donald
very,
J.
very
Trump.
Donald Trump. Let's say that.
Signed with, and I can tell that's his signature because he signs them all with the big black Sharpies. He carries a whole wad of them.
He has a beautiful signature.
Yeah, yeah. And what are you going to, when you see him, what are you going to say to him, Roman?
I'm going to have a casual conversation with him. I mean, not many men get an opportunity to meet with a sitting or future president of the United States of America. And my number one question is going to be off record, guys, please tell me what you're doing and what the plan is to win this following election, because we need you.
Okay, well, listen, great of you to break off from your epic journey with the boots. Just send him a message from me. It was good to talk to him the other night. So your old mate Piers, Donald, is ready to come to Mar-a-Lago for round 2 of the interview that rocked the world. So put a good word in for me, Roman. You're my big contact right
Absolutely will do. Just on a personal note, I'm a big fan of yourself. I've been watching you for quite a while, so thank you so much for having me on your show.
This is Roman, it's a pleasure. It's great to have you. Thank you very much. And your son, Marcus. Take care.
All right, bye.
Don't be a hater.
Oh my God, I'm not.
Don't be a hater.
You see, it's interesting. I want to bring in. Hang
on.
I want to bring in Deborah because I think James's reaction. This is one of the reasons why Trump is so popular, and one of the reasons why the Democrats and liberals attempt in America to try and throw the kitchen sink at him about everything they can think of is backfiring and making him stronger and more popular and more electable. It's because of this kind of hysteria that goes on.
Absolutely. And when Trump was saying that they weren't coming for him, they were coming for us, and he was just standing in the way, he wasn't lying. And that's exactly what we see. Anybody who supports Trump or even says that they like him, suddenly you're treated as if you were just as bad as Trump, which is in their eyes equivalent to Hitler, which as a Jew, I take a lot of offense in that because I think Donald Trump was a phenomenal president.
80 million people voted for Trump in the last election. Nearly 10 million
but
more.
But suddenly we're all the crazy
ones.
Hang on.
It was nearly 10 million more than voted for him in 2016. People forget that. Astonishing. Far from a repudiation. Yes, he lost, but 10 million more Americans went out and voted Trump second time round. And like I say, if Biden runs, given the state of him right now, I think Trump wins again. There's a Lincoln Project attack ad about Trump, which I wanted to also ask the panel about, because I think this crosses the line. Let's take a look.
Donnie, I always knew you'd blow it. You were always a fool. A joke, low rent. I'm ashamed you have my name. How did a son of mine turn out so damn dumb? I've been dead 30 years, and I'm still ashamed of you.
Now, that has been put out by the Lincoln Project, a big political action committee founded by moderate conservatives and Republicans. Moderate. Esther, when you watch that, that's Fred Trump. That is Donald's father, who's been dead for a long time. That's not him obviously saying that. That's just an AI mock-up of him saying...
Very poorly done.
Poorly done, but crude and nasty. These are supposed to be the moderate.
Yeah. I mean, it reeks of desperation. If you have to stoop so low, you really can't criticize Donald Trump, because these are the same people that say Donald Trump is crass, he's rude, he's always insulting people. You've literally done the exact same thing. You've resurrected the memory of his father to put words in his mouth in a very poorly done ad.
James, do you agree?
How are these people better?
I do largely, but I think it's worse when Trump does it because he's doing it to millions, billions of people.
How is it worse? Okay, I'm sorry.
Whereas that's just one person.
But again, here's where I have a problem. It's the equivalence is so fascinating with you, is that you have a much bigger problem if Trump does it than if someone does it to Trump.
Because Trump is affecting billions of people, and this guy, this AI, is only upsetting Trump.
Okay, no, these people are trying to stop Trump.
Also, I disputed that earlier. I never ever called a Trump voter crazy. I've never said that.
You think they're crazy?
I don't, but I do think.
Do you think it's crazy to vote Trump?
I wouldn't personally vote.
Is it crazy to vote Trump?
Is it crazy? A little bit when he's got
so they are crazy in your eyes.
Well,
right.
No, I think it's crazy to vote. Hold on, you can't just say, is it crazy to vote Trump?
I don't call Trump voters crazy. Is it crazy to vote Trump? Yes.
That's not the same thing, Piers.
Let me bring
Deborah. That is not the same thing.
Yeah, but let me bring you in. I think that is a pretty sick thing what the Lincoln Project did, actually.
I think that's absolutely abhorrent and sickening. To use someone's dead father to try and embarrass them or attack them or put them down, that is so low. It's a different level. This is the problem with politics nowadays. If they cannot debate on merits, they will make it personal rather than say, oh, Donald Trump didn't have good policies in our opinion, or we didn't like Donald Trump. Here's why you shouldn't vote for him. They try to use his past father to disgrace him. That is so evil, and that is something that they should be absolutely ashamed about. And it goes to show that they just have nothing against him. All they can do is launch personal attacks and try to play on people's emotions.
Right, but that is the right
really
that's doing that. That is the Republican
Yeah.
Party that are attacking Trump. So that isn't the left. That's actually his own people.
But I've seen X today, and everyone on the left's absolutely lapping this up. Which again comes
Not
from
everyone.
double
You check with every single left-handed.
No, but
left
all the ones who have "Be Kind" in their X bio profile.
You checked them all, did you?
Yeah. If it has "Be Kind," you know they are utterly repulsive. Be kind is a euphemism for being utterly disgusting.
I honestly think it is awful too. I think there's some horrible, hurtful things there. It is garbage. It is gutter politics.
I want to move on.
Trump has definitely done worse.
No, he hasn't done. I think he's done much worse than that. Actually, I think invoking his dead father that way is despicable. Let's come on to Prince William intervening in the Gaza war. He said, I remain deeply concerned about the terrible human cost of the conflict in the Middle East since the Hamas terrorist attack. Too many have been killed. I, like so many others, want to see an end to the fighting as soon as possible. Deborah, you're Jewish. What do you feel about the future King of England intervening in this way in the conflict?
I think if he really wanted this war to end, he would call on Hamas to surrender and return all of the hostages. This war will be over the minute that Hamas surrenders.
He did.
He didn't tell them. He said he hopes the hostages come back, but he didn't say entirely. And this is a war that would never have happened if it weren't for the
release the hostages. What else could he possibly say? He said release the hostages.
Call out Hamas. Hamas is the only people propagating this war. If Hamas put down their weapons, the war would be over tomorrow. Is anybody celebrating?
Nobody's celebrating. We all know that this happened because of what Hamas did on October 7th. We're not crazy people. We all know what happened.
I am glad that you agree with that, but unfortunately, that's not what the world is necessarily agreeing with. If you take a quick scroll on Twitter, you will see so many people saying that October 7th was justified. It didn't go far enough.
Twitter is full of bots
walk
trying
down
to
the
sell
streets
me
of
porn.
Manhattan. You want to pass 5 protests calling for an intifada?
Okay, let me bring in James. My problem with this, I think, is that I absolutely support Israel's right to defend itself. They have a moral duty to defend their people after the horrific attacks on October the 7th. They were beyond horrific. The question is proportionality, and also, what is the end game? It seems to me all that Israel's now doing is flattening everything that's there. Northern Gaza's pretty well being flattened. They're going after southern Gaza, and now they've given a warning that in 2.5 weeks they're going to attack the biggest refugee camp with 1.5 million people, 6 times the normal population of that camp. They're going to attack that to eliminate the rest of Hamas. Well, if they do that, they're going to kill tens of thousands of more innocent people, children. Half the people in Gaza are kids, right? That's my problem. This looks disproportionate now.
It does. I mean, I've barely spoken about this because it's just so upsetting to all sides, to all of humanity. The pictures coming out of Gaza are so upsetting. I've heard you talk about a proportionate response, and I honestly don't know how I feel about that because there is no proportionate response.
So how do you respond to it?
I'm not a politician, so I don't have an answer to that. I'm not sure how.
I mean, Deborah, I
do think that killing millions of innocent people, thousands of innocent people, is wrong.
I mean, Deborah, my problem is that I've read the arguments, and like I say, I'd support Israel's obvious right to defend itself. But when you have the volume of children now, I think it's 12,000 have been killed, another 20,000 orphaned, many, many more injured. Tens of thousands more injured, and innocent women who have nothing to do with this. And you think that Rafah may be next to be attacked. You surely, just on a human level, you must be beginning to have qualms about the scale of this.
Absolutely not. Of course, I feel for the people who are affected by this war who had nothing to do with it. But that is entirely to blame by Hamas, their elected government, who have no concerns about their own people. They were elected to protect their people, and their people would be totally safe right now if it weren't for their brutal attacks on October 7th.
I suspected you would say that.
And there is no proportionality.
Hamas is using them as a human shield, right?
To end this is to eliminate every single Hamas member and to make sure that this never happens again. Because if they have Well, maybe they shouldn't be hiding among civilian members and dressed like civilians.
Who's also
Why don't you condemn them for hiding in refugee camps and hiding in hospitals?
Because, no, I'm sorry. That excuse
That's a
stopped being valid
disgusting
after
comment. That is a
29,000
disgusting
people
comment to
died.
make. The
No, it's not
IDF
a
is the
disgusting
most
argument to
amazing
make.
defense
If
force.
I'm sorry, you saying
to say they
that
use
it's
human
all
shields, the
Hamas's
IDF shakes
fault.
buildings and
We
lets
know that
people
Hamas
know
don't
before
care about
they
their
hit.
Don't talk over
Hamas
each other.
hides among
We know
civilians.
that Hamas don't care about their civilians. We've known that. The Hamas has a track record going back for years, right? But over half of the people in Gaza right now facing this brutality weren't even born when Hamas was elected. You know that you can hide behind that excuse and say, oh, it's all Hamas's fault. Actually, the track record of Hamas not caring has already been there. They didn't care about them when they attacked on October the 7th. So it's now upon the Israeli government to stop hiding behind the excuse of Hamas and actually do something about it. I'm sorry, you can't use the same human shield
Hiding
argument
behind
when
the excuse of Hamas,
29,000 people
eliminating
have died.
Hamas is important.
29,000. Did you hear that? 29,000.
And how many of them have been terrorists? How many of them
guess what?
would have
Israel doesn't
survived
know.
if this weren't
Israel
for
doesn't
October
know.
7th?
They can't even
This is
confirm
not on
how many
IDF.
Hamas
IDF
fighters
has
say
responsibility
How
to
many
end
Hamas
Hamas
fighters
and
have
ensure that
Don't all
October
talk over each
7th
other.
never ever happens
the problem on the
again.
numbers is when you talk to anyone on the Israel side, they say they don't believe any of the figures that Hamas give them. But when you ask Israel, well, how many Hamas terrorists have you called? They give you precise numbers. How do they know?
Yeah, exactly. How does that work? Explain that
They're
to
just
us.
Because the
they're
IDF
just
is a
firing
real
bombs.
defense force that's not run through Gaza.
Oh, so
The
do they have
Ministry of
tattoos on their
Gaza, which is run
foreheads?
by
Is that
Hamas,
it?
putting out their numbers.
Oh, so Hamas fighters have tattoos on their foreheads. Is that it? Is that how you identify them so quickly?
What?
How
Hamas hides
do you
purposely with
identify a
civilians
Hamas
to make it even
fighter
harder.
from an innocent person that's being pulled dead from rubble? How do you identify? Do they have tattoos? What are their physical markings?
I'm not an IDF soldier. I don't know.
But you have
can ask
eyes,
IDF
right?
soldiers if you care,
Do
but I
IDF
know you're not
soldiers have 10
asking that
eyes?
out of good faith. You're asking that to try and make the IDF
So we're
look bad when the
supposed to-
IDF
All right,
is
let's cool the temperature a bit here. James, on a principle of William getting involved, is that wise?
I think so, yeah. I think William should start saying something. I think for a long time he's just not said anything.
But he was very measured as well.
He actually did say something after October the 7th on behalf of him and his wife, right?
Yeah.
I think
and Israel were happy with his statement that he's just put out.
I don't think he's taken sides. I think he's said what most people now
Israel
feel.
doesn't care what other people think of this
Then stop
conflict. That's
taking
really
foreign
important. Nobody
aid.
cares
If you
what
do not
people
care,
in
then
London
Don't talk
think
over
about
each
the
other.
conflict.
Let Deborah say what she wants to say.
The people in Israel, the Israeli government, and the IDF do not care what his opinion or anybody
fine.
else's opinion is. Right now,
Stop taking
all they
foreign
care about
aid.
is getting our hostages
But
back.
that is
They're
part
over
of the...
100
Okay, hang
hostages
on,
taken
Esther.
are
Hang
hiding.
on. Part of the problem, Deborah, is that it's very clear that Netanyahu and his very right-wing cabinet do not care what anybody has to say, including the United States.
Well, that's a problem in itself. That's a different problem. And in Israel,
it's
the
not a
climate
different
right
problem.
now, prior to
It's
October
not a different
7th,
problem.
there was an extreme divide between the left and the right in Israel. And actually, since this war, politics has been put down for a minute, and people of all different sides and different identifications have joined together and say, right now, all that matters is getting our hostages back. When that is over, we can talk about the government and reevaluate what we need to do.
All right, let's move on to something, just two little lighter things to end on, because Israel is always a very heated debate, and I understand it. I feel strongly for both sides. Honestly, I do. We're talking about a female gymfluencer in the US called Ali Singer, who goes by the username The Ripped Barbie. We got a clip of this.
I'm gonna wear a shirt. Can you at least have some muscles? Like.
If you're not going to wear a shirt, can you at least have some muscles? Listen, I get it. You want to train at a gym where everyone keeps their shirt on? That's fine. But this gym isn't one of them. I called Absolute Recomp in Texas, and their rules say you can train with your shirt off. And you signed up there. Therefore, you need to follow the rules, including the rule that says you don't film people without their consent to post on social media.
So just to clarify what went down there, this gymfluencer shamed this guy on social media for not being ripped enough to exercise shirtless. She filmed that, posted to TikTok, and then a fellow male gym fitness influencer, Joey Swole, posted a video and got her banned. So all sorts of stuff going on here. Esther, where do you sit on A, people filming in gyms, and B, the shirtless issue? Do you need to pass an abs and
I'm a
muscle
bit
test?
of a prude. I don't really want to see anyone topless. Generally speaking, I just think it's
I don't.
it's disrespectful to
I
the
didn't know
public.
people did that.
You can wear a singlet.
I bet you do it, don't you?
Of course I do.
How did I know that?
But I think filming someone in a gym is just...
Is that because you basically see it as a dating scenario?
I think it can be.
Is that why you go shirtless?
But no, that's absolutely not why. If I'm in a class and it's really hot and the aircon isn't on...
Really? You strip down?
Then I would take my top off. Yeah, I think so, yeah. Why? Is that bad? Are you judging
I
me?
couldn't get away with it. I'm just saying.
You could get away with it.
I don't want to see your half-naked flesh.
Well, I don't want to see yours either, Piers, but I wouldn't
funny
body
enough,
shame you for it.
I wear proper clothes in the gym, and in fact, this goes back actually to the argument we had about men v women in sport, because I have a trainer in West London called Sarah, and she actually competed in the Olympics for Team GB as a speed skater. And she's very proud of her physique and her muscles and everything else. And she keeps challenging me to different things each time she comes back from Dubai, where she has a gym that she's running there. And each time I beat her. So this time she said, I finally found something I can beat you at. So this is your Gender Olympics point, right? So she's decided it would be the T-bar, that we would have a T-bar competition. So we began to lift ever bigger weights on the T-bar. And then we got to 55 kilograms, about 120 pounds. And this happened. Come on. This was her idea for the challenge. I've got big back and arms. Really? To see how big back and arms she is. Good luck.
Come on, boss, pull.
Broken.
Funny that.
Sorry, mate.
I feel like Sarah wasn't really even trying.
So just to be clear...
Oh, was that it?
Just to be clear, I don't go shirtless because I don't want to make other men feel inadequate. But secondly, the point I would make there is I'm 58 years old. I'm not a spring chicken. I'm certainly not an Olympic athlete. And there you have a woman around half my age who is an Olympic athlete.
You don't have an adjudicator in the room, so I'm not sure I can trust
Are you
this
joking?
footage. Was that AI?
Are you serious?
Like, how do I know that was
No,
real?
my actual regular trainer, James, was witnessing the whole thing and videoing it and apologised to his boss for the humiliation that then came her way. Deborah,
You have to concede, sorry.
Deborah, where do you sit with all this, Deborah? I mean, I think firmly you keep your shirts on, you show some decorum, and actually you don't film people in gyms without their permission.
I would definitely agree on the not filming. I feel uncomfortable if I even take a picture of myself, and there's some people who might be in the background at the gym, because you never know what people are working on or going through, and they don't consent to be on your social media or be in the background of your TikTok. But as far as being shirtless, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think if you're sweating all over the place and it's unhygienic, yeah, wear a layer of protection to absorb that stuff. But in general, as a woman, I understand why wearing just a sports bra can help you see in the mirror where you're lifting and make sure that you're actually toning and reaching certain muscles. So if it inspires you to work out and to get healthier, then I really couldn't care less. And if honestly, I see a lot of guys with a six-pack, I'm not complaining.
I think seeing James Barr's naked flesh would be the opposite of inspiring me to great heights, I have to say.
I think we should both do the gym topless together. I challenge you
I really
to come to the
don't
gym.
need to see that.
Let's move on to our final subject. It's a sad story of a pensioner falling over. Not Joe Biden this time, but it's a pensioner falling over. Let's take a look. It's Madonna, who I think should have been retired many years ago. It gets more and more embarrassing. James, you and I have duked it out about Madonna before, but honestly, mate, when she's now just falling over like Biden, it's time, isn't
Madonna's fallen over before, and she's got back up again, and she's amazing.
Yeah,
she's
but
slaying.
see, the knees weren't as creaky.
Honestly, like Piers, you're a pensioner, and your ratings are falling, so I don't know why you haven't retired.
Actually, my ratings are great, except when you're on.
You're nearly a pensioner, and that's not true about your ratings, actually.
Let me ask Deborah about this, because apparently with falls, a significant cause of pensioner mortality. And she is a pensioner, she's 65. I'm genuinely concerned about her welfare.
I think it's honestly on an individual basis. Like, my grandparents are both in their 90s and they're spring chickens, as they say, lifting weights, going to the gym every day, really, truly healthy. But Madonna just doesn't look okay, and I'm sincerely sending help and good wishes her way. I think she definitely should be a little bit more careful, but if she were to go out on stage, I feel like she'd be okay with that.
The thing is, she doesn't look okay because she's full of Botox.
No, she's
patronising.
Madonna is a complete and utter embarrassment. It is like your drunken aunt.
This is
at
from
a
the
wedding.
man that opened this segment earlier with the word, by calling himself a dude, can we just say?
Yeah.
Like,
Nothing
speaking
wrong with
of
that, mate.
embarrassing.
I'm a dude.
I think that's probably the most embarrassing
When
thing.
I go down to Middle America, they call me that British dude.
Oh, my God,
They do.
great.
The British dude.
It's
my name.
Leave Madonna alone. She's an
I mean-
icon.
If
She's
only
What do
we
you say
could.
over there,
It's a
chap?
bit like Meghan and Harry. Leave them alone. That's the last thing they want, these people.
Madonna won't quit.
They're the
Till
most
her last
ridiculous
breath,
attention
she won't
seekers
quit.
in the history of planet Earth. Leave them alone.
You're the biggest attention seeker ever, so that's such a hypocritical thing to say.
I deserve attention, James.
Oh, really? Do you?
On that bombshell, thank you to my pack. It's the first one of these we've done, the extended pack for YouTube. I enjoyed it, actually. So thank you all for joining me, and come back soon. Apart from you, James. Thank you very much.
Thank you.